Routing is one of the most important core concepts in ASP.NET Core web application. So let's understand. Let's say I have deployed ASP.NET Web Core application on this server, right? And you can see in the diagram, uh, for this application we are having three controllers: controller 1, 2, and 3. And you must be knowing that controller must have action methods, right? So let's say we are sending a request from the client, and your client could be your browser, Postman, or Swagger. Let's suppose we are sending a request from client to the server, right? And as you know that once we send a request, it has to pass through HTTP pipeline over the line. And once it is passed, the request basically goes to the controller, and inside that controller to particular action method, right? And after processing that's need to be done by this particular request inside the action method, that particular action method generates a response and send it back to the browser or to the client. So this is the process which needs to be done, right? But one point to notice here is how the application comes to know that it has to hit particular controller and action method, right? So all these things are taken care by the routing, right? Right. Once we send a request from client to the server, we have a routing table, and it basically matches in that routing table that particular request which is coming from the client. It is having a particular match, and if the match is found in that routing table, it basically hit to the particular controller and action method. So this is how routing takes care of all these things. So let's understand what is the basic concept of routing. Routing is a pattern matching system, and it is used to map the incoming request from the client or browser to that particular resource. And when I say resource, that means I am talking about particular action method, right? We can access any resource using a unique URL. That means we can access any action method using a unique URL, right? Let's say we have a controller, and inside that controller we have one action method, right? So for that particular action method, we can define a routing URL, or we can say a unique URL to call it from the browser, right? And a resource can have multiple unique URLs, right? Remember one thing, multiple resources cannot have the same URL. That means, let's say we have a controller, and inside that controller we have 4 to 5 action methods. That means all these action methods cannot have multiple, cannot have the same URL for the corresponding action method, right? All the action method must be having unique URL, right? So that is all about routing. And if you are very new to this routing, I will mention in the description box for the routing link. You can go to my ASP.NET MVC tutorial videos, and you can cover up the topic routing and all the basic concepts from that, right? So that is all for this video for the routing.